Oh, good morning. Let's turn my volume back up, see if that makes a difference. Good morning. Welcome to Brewing Happiness. Grab a cup of your favorite coffee, tea, hot cocoa, whatever. Float your boat. And we have an amazing show today as we're going to talk about it's a book review talking about power versus force. Okay. What? Excuse me, I'm going to start off with a cough. Let's start again. What if you could know the truth about anything? What if you could get a definitive yes or no answer to any question you could think to ask? Would that make a difference in your life? And what if you could know with absolute certainty that the response of your question was 100% true? Would that change anything? Because that's what we're going to talk about today. And I learned about this amazing information, and once again, in this book called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, MD, PhD, amazing person, spiritually enlightened. And now that I've read the book and read a little bit about him, I am inspired to go learn more about him because this book changed my life, rocked my world, blew my mind, changed my perspective, and I'm probably going to read it again. And let's just be honest. I'm bringing you this book report because it was not an easy read. It was like being in college. It was like reading a college textbook is how this book reads. I'm going to read you a little bit of it later just so you can see what I mean about the text. But that's our subject for today. If you're here on the replay, welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. Drop me a line. Love to hear from you. A heart, maybe an emoji. Love to know what you think about the show. All right. So let's back to this. What would knowing the truth about everything, how would that impact your life? How would it impact your relationships? How would it, if everybody had access to this information, what if we all had access to the same information so we all knew inherent truth? How would that change advertising, television, politics? The entire world, right, is about people convincing each other, convincing one another about their positions and opinions, and it's all the same until there's a calibration of truth, right? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today in Power versus Force. And this book was so big and so impactful, it's going to take 2 days to talk about it. So today I'm going to talk about the overview and kind of the basics. And then tomorrow maybe we'll dive into some really thick subjects if you like it. So today, the truth. It's a system. This is a simple system you can use at home. How about that? So we're going to start off by talking about kinesiology. Kinesiology. This is a study of muscles and their movement, especially as it's applied to physical conditioning, right? So the work we're talking about started with Dr. George Goodhart. Dr. George Goodhart, how don't you love that name? Who pioneered this specialty, and he called it applied kinesiology after he found that muscles reacted with a response of either a show of strength or weakness to being near physical stimuli, benign physical stimuli. What does that mean? Well, in this case, he used nutritional supplements. And when he held a supplement up to a person's chest or a part of their body and tested a certain muscles, those muscles responded with either a show of strength or a show of weakness, determined by if that product, if the nutritional supplement was good for the person. So, started off testing nutritional supplements and got good responses. These are good for you. Then he tested some not good for you. He started off with artificial sweetener. Back in the day, that was the bad guy, right? Started off with some artificial sweetener and tested that, got a totally weak or a negative response, that this was not good for you. Okay, it's getting interesting, huh? Then in the late 70s, Dr. John Diamond defined this process and he called it behavioral kinesiology. And he took it one step further because he discovered that if the stimuli were not physical, not something you held against you, but just a thought you held in your mind, an emotional or an intellectual stimulus, you got the same results. Our thoughts! They were testing the truth or the truth of your, the positivity, right? Is it good for you? Not the, this is a really big story, so pardon me if I'm confused here at the beginning. Anyway, what he discovered, that he got the same, let's just talk in facts right now, not my opinion, right? Dr. Diamond discovered that these same responses of strength or weaknesses were true for thoughts you held in your head. So with no physical stimuli presence, just holding a positive or a negative thought in your head, you got the same corresponding positive, negative, weak muscle response. So a smile tested very strong, positive. I hate you tested very weak. This is starting to remind me again of Dr. Emoto and the water, right? A physical, measurable data point. That's what we're going to call it, a data point. Not just an idea, not just something we're all chatting about and deciding who has a better idea, right? And with no subjective discussion, with no real fulcrum of truth. But now everything might have that fulcrum of truth. How does that change things, right? Now, the most amazing part of the experiment was the uniformity of responses. In science, you can say whatever you want about some test, but to be considered valid in the scientific community, it has to be your results have to be reproducible, right? You can't just say, honestly, it worked for me, and everybody goes, oh yeah, it was great. No. We have to be able to, the whole community has to agree. So what Dr. Diamond discovered was he got the same responses, positive, negative, weak or strong, across many different groups of testers, right? The results were repeatable and predictable across groups of testers who, by the way, had no connection to one another, didn't know each other, didn't respond because they had common biases or anything. They're all different. They even tested, this is the part that put me over the top, right? They even tested words written on a piece of paper, delivered in a sealed envelope. So when the subjects didn't even know what the words said, they consistently and repeatedly got the same responses. Huh? How can your body know how to respond in a positive or negative, strength or weak manner to something it doesn't even know? The words on inside the envelope. That's how powerful this is. But we're going to get to this. How does this work? We're still talking about the mechanics of it, right? We're going to talk about it in a minute. But by the way, this is so powerful because repeatable and predictable and consistent results is what it takes in the scientific community to call it scientific proof, right? These are the standards of science. And that's what Dr. Diamond found, was that this was no anomaly. This was no just curiosity. This was a repeatable process that worked even when the subjects did not know. They tested this where one of the testing methods involves two people, a tester and a helper, right? They tested this with the helper holding thoughts in their head and not telling the tester what they were thinking, still responded consistently to what was being held in the mind of the helper. Are you with me on this? Are you keeping up? Because this is mind blowing. I can know the truth to anything, anytime. My body knows the truth. Oh my God, this is terrifying to me. Okay, so fun fact: tested pop music and classic rock, and they got a strong positive response. But then they tested heavy metal, weak response. Not shocking to me. I've never enjoyed heavy metal music. They tested people listening to known fabricators, liars, like LBJ talking about the Tonkin incident in Vietnam, or Teddy Kennedy talking about Chappaquiddick. Anyway, what happened when people were listening to these known provocators? They responded with weakness. Their muscles responded with weakness. So, back to the book. In 1975, Dr. Hawkins started his testing. Now, first of all, Dr. Hawkins, he is a quite amazing person. At the end of the book, in his own words, he tells the story of his spiritual journey and some spiritual experiences that happened to him. And I'm telling you, this guy was talk about ascended. He was operating on a different level. He was up there with Mother Teresa and some of the masters, because he had amazing experiences. And his experiences led him to believe that what was at work here was a communal consciousness, right? The matrix that we talk about, the universal consciousness. Spiritus Mundi. Now, Spiritus Mundi is a Latin term that literally means the world's spirit. In Spiritus Mundi, according to Yeats, William Butler Yeats, right? A universal memory and a muse of sort that provides inspirations to poets or writers. I'm going to be consulting with the Spiritus Mundi in the very near future. Those lights changes are anyway. All right, I'm ADD in here for a second. Okay, so like Carl Jung, Dr. Hawkins called this the database of consciousness. Now, as a former database manager, as a former process continuous improvement engineer who relies on data, this is exciting stuff for me. This is like the converging of two worlds, taking the spiritual world and the science world, which I love both of them, right? And as we are finding more and more, these things are not diametrically opposed. There is no choice between God and science. God is science. It's all the same. Okay, so like birds in the sky that flock, right? That birds that they fly together and they turn together, you've seen this in the big shapes, right? Like schools of fish school, they do the same thing. They turn together and they swim together. And so there's a little mechanism, right, that connects them, that allows them to communicate in ways that are inside, right? They're inherent. They're, we call it intuitive. And here's the best part. We have this too. It's in us. It is. So kind of works like this. Asking a specific yes or no question is it's the way our nerve synapses work, right? It's either on or off. These are the only choices. There's no gray, there's no maybe, it's just yes or no, on or off. And this is the most basic form of cellular knowledge. The synapse that says you're on, you're off. You're performing, you're not. You're positive or you're negative. You're strong or you're weak, right? This is our most basic form of cellular communication. And this is what premier physicists of our time say is the nature of universal energy. Because it's all the same energy. Anyway, our brains, our minds, ourselves are connected to this universal energy force, giving us access to all the knowledge of the universe, everything that's ever been known, everything that ever will be known, anything that's ever happened, anything that ever will happen. Every piece of information that ever has been or will be available in the collective consciousness that your mind is connected to. And that you, through this very simple testing method, have access, can validate. Now, Dr. Hawkins now, he started with it, and I'm going to have to go to a separate set of notes here. Sorry. Dr. Hawkins' discovery was a means of calibrating relative truths so that statements could be ranked on a scale of 1 to 1,000, ranging from 1 to 1,000, right? By simply testing an idea, a statement. You might do the test and say, this idea calibrates at 200, yes or no? You got to know. This calibrates at 300, yes or no? Got to know. This calibrates at 400. You got to yes. Okay, so then you're starting to, that's how they used it to narrow in on a number. We're going to talk about the testing method in a minute. But for the first time in human history, ideological relativity could be known. And so what he's created is a metric of truth. Now, again, coming from the process improvement world, anything that is to be improved, the first thing you decide on is, what is your metric? What is your measurement? What is your method of measuring this? Because without measurement, what we can't measure, we can't manage, right? And that's a basic business tenet, is that if you're not, and by the way, the second one is that we have to measure what's important, not what's easy to measure. That set aside, what he has done, what Dr. Hawkins has done, is calibrated everything on the scale of 1 to 1,000. He discussed this testing and this calibration took place over a span of 20 years and involved millions of calibrations. And of course, Dr. Hawkins did not do millions of testing on people his own self, right? He had entire teams of people. He was in charge of a giant psychiatric hospital, and he had teams of doctors and patients and people that would be willing to help with this. And so millions of tests were conducted to form this calibration. And he developed a fascinating map of the anatomy of consciousness. Now, we're going to talk about this part more tomorrow. But what he discovered, and I'm going to just talk in terms of 1,000, 1 to 1,000, right? Talk about how he did it later. But after calibrating everything, Dr. Hawkins says that 85% of, okay, first of all, 200, you have to calibrate. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's back up just a little bit. So we made this scale of calibrations. I'm going to post this tomorrow when we talk about this part of the, I lost my bookmark. Hold on. When we talk about this tomorrow, I will post this and we'll talk about this more. But if you can see his map of consciousness, what he's basically done is giving you levels, right? A grid view. And there's numbers that correspond. What are you doing when you're vibrating? Let's see. So here's your log. It starts at 20. Vibrating at 20. Ends at 1,000. Okay. A metric, right? Now we have a metric. Now we got a scale. Without this, we can't see if things are going up or down. Without this, we can't measure relativity of one to another. So if we trust Dr. Hawkins, and we're going to talk a little bit more about him tomorrow, when we trust Dr. Hawkins for this scale, so let's just start off by believing him. And we'll talk about why you should believe him later. Well, you should believe him because the tests were repeatable and reproducible and consistent and passed rigorous scientific testing. So you should believe this for that reason alone, that these aren't just ideas. These are things that prove themselves out over and over and over again. So on the scale of 1 to 1,000, he says 200 is the discernment mark. No spiritual growth, no positivity comes until you hit 200. Everything below 200, you're kind of sucking resources from the rest of us. Kind of sucking the resources in. You are. Remember the tube from the Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment we talked about? How you had this tube of vibration and you could choose any time to shoot to the top of the tube and vibrate very high or lay at the bottom of the tube. Well, think about your tube is calibrated from 1 to 1,000, right? If you are vibrating, if you are operating less than 200, you're not yet at the capacity for enlightenment. I'm not sure exactly what he calls it, but the bottom line is nothing good happens till you hit 200. All goodness starts at 200. And then the badness. 85% of the world operates below the 200 mark. We had some statistics I can't remember, but they were like 1% of the world is above. I don't know. So big numbers. So Mother Teresa, so Jesus and Buddha, they calibrate 1,000, right? Mother Teresa, Gandhi, they calibrate 500, 600. 600 is the point. 500, up to 600. I can't remember what the cutoff is at 600, but super consciousness. You have reached super consciousness when you get to 600, and most of us operate on or about the 200 mark. And you can find out where you are currently vibrating by doing the testing we're going to talk about in just a minute. Same way, you're going to test the number. Anyway, this is a couple of things before we go. Oh, the testing. Let's talk about the testing. How do I do this silly testing? Well, there's 3 ways to do the testing. The first way requires 2 people, right? The tester and the helper. The tester holds out their arm like this, like that. And the helper puts 2 fingers right here and pushes. You hold that thought in your head, or you hold that thing to your chest that you want to test, or the idea. You ask the question, and then you push. A strong response, you shouldn't be able to push it down. A weak response, your arm immediately lowers. This is a parlor game. If you've probably played this with your friends, or you've had some doctor somewhere test you this way, maybe this is all brand new to you. But if you do this to yourself, you just start off by saying your name. My name is Tina Ann, strength. My name is Mary Ann. Boom, weakness, because it's not the truth. So try that test. Now, if you don't have a friend and you want to do this by yourself, there's another way. There's 2 other ways you can try this. One is a simple finger test. You hold your fingers this way, and you put your other fingers here, and you pull. I say, my name is Tina Ann. Nothing. My name is Mary Ann. Pulls right through. I am not making the difference in how hard I am pushing on this hand. My name is Tina Ann. My name is Mary Ann. Your muscles know. One other method that you can do by yourself is simply stand. I'm going to stand up. I hope you can still see me. I'll stand back here. You're going to stand up, put your hands across your chest. Either going to hold something to your chest or hold it in your mind and ask the question, and then you find yourself a lean backwards, or you'll lean forward. Forward for a positive response, backwards for a negative response. Again, consistent, reproducible, repeatable. Now, a couple of caveats. This cannot be used to predict the future. Not going to win any, not going to find out any lottery numbers this way. This is not what this is about. It's about the truth of what is, not the what is coming, right? The other thing is, here's the kicker. You need to be calibrating at about 200 for this to work. If you're calibrating in less than 200, your personal vibrational number, you might get false responses. He says, so Dr. Hawkins says that most of us only move about 5 points in our life. Only change by about 5 points from. Some are stuck in the lower areas that don't lend themselves to growth without some extraordinary experience or interference or love or a mentor or something. These are levels that are difficult to get out. And as we talk about the calibration of ideas and things in the world, like music, like we talked about the pop music versus heavy metal, when you start talking about the calibration of ideas, you see that there are, he calls them, what does he call them? Attractor beams, attractor systems, attract. And that different ideas create different attraction systems. Some of them attracting you to the positive, some attracting you to the negative, right? Remember, your body doesn't know. Your body knows right from wrong, positive from negative. And some things out there are specifically designed to attract you into negative patterns. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is the negative and positive attractor patterns in the world and how we respond to them, and starting to give you some hints. And I also want to tell you a little bit about a personal experience that I had yesterday. Maybe you saw my live on my personal page, but I had just a not so great day, right? Some circumstances. Okay, I locked my keys in the trunk of our car, and it caused an entire day of turmoil. All's well that ends well. It all turned out all well, but it was very frustrating. And for a while, we thought we were going to be in some big trouble. Like, everything I owned was locked in the trunk of the car. My keys, the keys to my second car, my driver's license, all my credit cards. And we weren't going to be able to move the car, open the trunk. We were not at home. Stuck at the beach all day. I know, poor you. Anyway, it was very frustrating, and it was very emotional. And there were times when the man and I were kind of on each other's throat. And yet the experiences I got, the things I learned by reading this book, the experience I had was so different than it could have been. Because Dr. Hawkins allowed me to step back, see things from a perspective of universal consciousness, see that the illusions of what happens in the material world are, just our situation, right? Don't really mean anything. That most of us are so caught up in this material world that we may have lost touch with our spiritual side, our power, our superpowers, our purpose, our passions. We may be so caught up in just living every day, getting to work, getting the kids to school, getting dinner on the table, getting the report in on time, getting to baseball practice. Do I have the right equipment? It's always something, right? We're so busy with that. Are we forgetting to step back and trust in this bigger collective consciousness that's always there as a tool and as a guide, and it knows the truth and is willing to share it with you for the simplicity of simply asking? I don't know, friends, for me, this is powerful stuff. If you want to know more, I would love it if you would DM me or leave a comment, and I would love to have this conversation. I'm going to try to encourage everybody I know to read this book. I'll probably be buying a copy for each of my children, although they're never going to read it because, like I said, it is really hard to read. Anyway, I loved it. Changed my life, changed my perspective, and now I need to share it with you because that's what I do, right? Go out there, find interesting, fabulous pieces of information that you may or may not have heard about, expand on them, teach a little bit about them, and give you an opportunity to go and learn more for yourself. That's my goal, is to help us each achieve that level of 200 plus, right? We want to all grow to be vibrating at 300, 400, 500. How can you do that? I don't know. Dr. Hawkins says I get 35 points just for reading and understanding this book. So, yay me. And I'm going to go back and read it again. Honestly, I feel like I need to just start over at the beginning and start back through it again. It was that impactful. So that's our show for today. Leave me a note. I'd love to know if you liked it. If you'd like some notes on this, I will send you the show notes. I'll send you my outline of what I've talked about. So leave me a little message that just says show notes, and I will send you a copy of what I talked about today. So that's me for today. So drinking my coffee, brewing happiness, little alchemy in life, right? That you can just brew up some happiness in the morning with a cup of coffee and a conversation with a good friend. And that's what this show is designed to do. So I'll be back tomorrow, 7 o'clock, with part 2 of Power versus Force. And I hope to see you. Till tomorrow, make it a happy day.